let's do this. My name is Josh Blaylock, Chief Evangelist at Jabra, and I'm hosting today as per usual, but I'm not presenting today. We enlisted the help of some friends internally to jump on and talk about a topic that I am not quite that equipped to present on. So very excited to be joined by Orlando White, Jim Sellers from our team to talk about our frontline worker solutions. We'll get into that in just a second. Before we do, let's get ready for some housekeeping here. Now, I already see some names that I recognize in this list. Welcome back. And there's some in here that I assume are probably new as well. So that's really cool. For those that are new, let's talk about what we mean by unwebinar and how we run these things. All right. An unwebinar means that while we're still bringing content to you, we want this to be engaging back and forth. We want this to be less of information being poured in one direction and more of here's some information, but bring your questions. If you're comfortable, reference the unrules of engagement. Turn that camera on if you're comfortable. And if you want to ask a question audibly, just throw your hand up in Teams with the little hand raising button. We'll unmute you and let you ask the question on the spot. Of course, there's chat that's open to you, as well as the Q&A app. So if you want to ask your question that way, we'll try to be fielding them either quietly on the side, or if it's something that we need to interrupt Orlando and Jim for, we will do that. And we'll get questions answered as we go along. But that's it. Nothing really more special about this. It's just taking a more formal presentation style and making it less formal, more engaging. So if you're comfortable, turn on the cameras, get ready to have a chat, get ready to bring those questions. We're here to get to know each other and hopefully learn something new and have some fun. That last item there, everybody loves getting a cool piece of equipment, right? And we give away some stuff technically speaking, but we don't give it away during the show. We give it away afterwards because we use our attendance report to base our selection on. So if you're here or will be here in the next few minutes, you are eligible to win. Congratulations. That is the bar you need to meet to be in the running. So if you're here, very cool. As you can see, we are giving away a little bit different of a package this time around. Pentacast 20, still front and center from a video perspective, but the Perform 75, which is key to this conversation today, frontline worker-centric device, will also be in the running. So excited to give one of those out to a lucky winner out there. All right, now last step before I stop talking a whole bunch and hand this over to the people of the hour. A quick QR code on screen to remind you that if you are not yet bookmarking the jabra.com/technically speaking webpage, you should be. And that's where you can go do that. That keeps you in the know, right? It keeps you knowing which sessions are coming up next, lets you get them on your calendar so you're not missing them. And if you do miss one, all the on-demand sessions are there as well. So I think it's pretty self-explanatory why you should be getting that QR code pulled up and bookmarking it if you have not. All right, if anyone needs that later, we'll come back to that slide at the end. Let us know if you do in the comments or something, and we'll just come right on back there. But I'm going to go ahead and finish our little housekeeping items. Hand the show over to Orlando and Jim. Guys, thanks for being here. It's awesome to have you on. Please take it away.
So I guess first what I'd want to say is, Josh, I love your energy. You are a hard act to follow. I've watched these technically speakings. I've never been on the presenter side, and I think I need to get my energy up. So maybe just a sip of coffee here so I can get my game on.
There you go.
That said, I'm really, really excited to be here. And I want to thank the marketing team for inviting us to talk about something that has been a journey that we've been on, Jim and I, for the last 6 years. And it's the frontline worker space. And, what we're attempting to do here is to upgrade the market opportunity for devices for users that have traditionally been on walkie-talkie and other similar devices that, to be quite frank, don't meet the standards of enterprise quality that Jabra has delivered consistently. And in the spirit of doing an unwebinar, I thought it would be awesome to bring on the most technically speaking person I know, Jim Sellers. He's a business development rep. We joined the industry at the same time back in 1999, so we have have kind of navigated through all the technology changes from unified communications and collaboration to what's happened in the contact center from traditional PBXs to VoIP. And this is really exciting because we've seen these trends take hold, and we're excited to pioneer this space and help educate not only our end users but also our partners in the ecosystem and our strategic alliance partners to make sure that we win at this because I think this is going to be the next trend of adoption. With that said, I have a very simple vision as you think about the evolution of how we're using Teams right now in order to communicate and collaborate. The really simple question is if you're a frontline worker and you don't have these tools, all you have is, for example, a walkie talkie, you don't have access to data. You have to look at a little screen to get information, and you can't provide the level of customer service and interaction to those that you're serving the same way that we can interact and collaborate on this webinar. So there are a number of companies, both in the hardware and software space, trying to solve that problem. Our goal is to be the endpoint and support that transition and move this forward, not only for the frontline workers that wear our devices, but for the ecosystem that's evolving and the IT decision makers to make sure they have total cost of ownership, a return on their investment, improve their customer experience, and retain those employees by making their job easier with technology. If all of that makes sense, then it's time to turn it over to my friend and colleague, Jim Sellers, because this slide is an interesting one. I see some bubbles. I see that she's buying shoes. I wouldn't get those, but give me your more technical explanation of what's going on here.
No, I appreciate that, Orlando. And, I got to say, we've been on a long, strange trip for all these years. So I think all that's changed is, now I got to wear glasses. But appreciate your leadership and everything. And, I think what I love about us addressing the frontline work is that, it fits in so well with Jabra's leadership over the years, and going back in terms of the history of bringing, having devices bring and make experiences and support, new ways of working, that we're not only addressing the communication and collaboration needs of the knowledge worker and task worker, but as well as the frontline worker. So it's great to, unite really the kind of full headcount that you would find under any enterprise, under the one single roof. You're going to find a whole mix of knowledge workers, task workers, and frontline workers, and that we can, bring a full portfolio to bear to address everyone, really speaks to the strength of our offer. I think what it's important to know and, to recognize in the frontline worker space, its differences and idiosyncrasies and everything, that there are specific experiences that frontline workers, deal with day to day, that may not be, pertinent or germane to the knowledge worker space in the office worker or the work from home. That from the perspective of frontline work, it's very mobile driven. It's built around engaging company processes that are typically being managed over company provided mobile devices, and these devices being shared. They're not necessarily personal to the individual worker. They're going to be grabbing a random device every day, logging in, and and then that device populates with all the applications and processes that they need, in order to do their important work. They're deskless, they're mobile, they're traversing, a variety of diverse environments inside the four walls, outside the four walls. From a retail environment, can go from, parking lot and curbside to the BOPIS desk, where you're picking up an online order as a customer, to anywhere in the, inside that retail floor space. If you're in a warehouse, you're traversing, large spaces, looking to pick product. If you're a field service worker, maybe a professional driver, you're in vehicle. So a variety of spaces, a variety of environments, and these environments, they're typically challenged with noise. And just given like kind of the random chaos that could be going on around any particular frontline work, that's going to affect communication. And given the mobile aspect, given everything we're talking about, you got to be heads up, you got to be hands free as you're engaging with customers and clients.
Thanks for that, Jim. I think I may have heard someone had a question.
No, that was just Rhoda. I think she was picking up on the other line.
Oh,
but I muted her. No worries.
Shout out to Rhoda again. Thanks for putting us together. I completely love the picture just because, again, I don't like the shoes, but I'd be stressed if I had to be in that environment and trying to figure out what stock was available. And I think the overview you gave was great. However, Jim, you've called me a lot of good things and a lot of bad things. Did you just call me a BOPUS? And do you want to tell the audience what BOPUS is?
Yeah.
I am not a BOPUS, my friend.
Oh, I eat up the retail jargon. Yeah. Buy online, pick up in store.
Told you he was technical. Let's move on. All right. So as we move to this slide, you know what I think of? I think of the fact that there's a legacy about the journey Jim Long and myself has been on. And that legacy is a very different brand than Jabra, but it's a dominant brand. It's called Blue Parrot. And Blue Parrot has the dominant market share currently and for probably the last decade, fact check me on that, for professional drivers. And by professional drivers, we're talking long haul drivers. We're talking the big trucks that you see that pick up goods from ports and drive from coast to coast. And so what's important to them? Having the right tools. And so some of how we have been informed in order to create the Perform series is to do what Jabra does best. Deep listening to our customers, understanding what those needs are, not as the manufacturer, but from the perspective of those consumers of our product. And internally, one of our leadership commitments, one of the top 3 is that we must be customer geeks. And that means both asking for feedback, being willing to accept when things don't work and what consumers don't like. And at the enterprise level, that's a really big deal. So not only are we dealing with the people that wear the products, we're dealing with the people that run the networks on those products. And what we refer to as the amazing professional driver community, they call themselves truckers. And we love truckers, and that has built an amazing business for us. But if you think about frontline work, professional examples are just one example of a use case. We know, based on the feedback we've gotten and the success we've had in that space, there's an infinite opportunity for expansion across other segments and verticals. Jim, talk to me about what those other verticals we should be focused on and what we're addressing with the Perform lineup.
Yeah, no, this is a great lens to look at it, in terms of, because I spoke about, frontline workers as a generic term and a diverse set of spaces and workflows, and we're like, let's put some, names to the roles and the situations that they're in. What are the environments? And, your intro in terms of like talking about the professional driver is very important here, because this really expands the scope when you look at the slide. We're all familiar, or been made to be familiar with the whole phrase about supply chain. But, if you take the story of how one particular good gets from, say, the Port of Los Angeles and arrives at your local retail store shelf for you to pick up as a customer, all along that way, that supply chain, thread is going to be particular intervention points where frontline workers are, moving that product all the way through. So, from, say, like the Port of Los Angeles, there's going to be a driver, there's going to be a professional driver taking goods, container goods, bringing them to distribution centers. Those containers get broken down, goods are getting moved and shifted. So from your distribution centers, there's going to be processes that, may be voice driven, might be utilizing voice collaboration, teams of people that need to be coordinated in order to move stuff. So there's a play, there's an area we can address. As your drivers bring goods now to those retail stores, again, like coordination of frontline work in physical spaces, merchandising goods, placing goods on shelf, making sure, goods are inventoried correctly, and, all of that's being tracked. Again, like, very specific experience nodes where, real people are doing real things to get goods to, the market, get right to the retail store where you as a customer are going to pick them up. So, these particular roles that are being addressed here, but think of also the people all along the way. That's who we're going to support and empower with Jabra Perform and Blue Parrot, for our professional drivers. So we really cover the full, supply chain storyline thread with all of our products.
I don't know what the demographics are on this call. What you just said simply reminds me of Schoolhouse Rock, and I'm just a Bill. There are multiple steps in terms of how we get the products that we consume. The workers that help to deliver those products to us have really unique demands in terms of how they can do their jobs better and faster, no different than, again, teams and laptops and mobile devices help us stay connected in the environment. So I never thought I'd reference that on an webinar, but I guess it's the right time to do it. I'm just a Bill. Moving on, let's talk about.
Hey guys,
yes.
Before you move on, and this might be jumping ahead a little bit, but there's a question from George in the Q&A about, he says, we know that a push-to-talk feature is a Microsoft Teams walkie-talkie feature. So does this mean that all Perform headsets are Teams certified? If so, would they come with a Link 950 dongle to be used on laptops, or are they just going to use the native Bluetooth of a mobile device?
Great question, George. No need to step ahead. Jim, I'll let you lead, and I'll give my perspective on it.
Yeah, and actually the question actually threads well with this, because everything that we're talking about today really is mobile forward, in that the intention of the products is intended to connect to mobile devices primarily first. So this is an iOS and Android driven world. The products don't come packaged with any particular Jabra dongle. So we have Evolve and Engage products that suit those purposes, in terms of those like connectivity points to go to laptops or desktops. These are intended to be paired directly to iOS and Android devices, as you see, mobile computers, tablets, smartphones. You mentioned walkie-talkie specifically. That is a feature that's provided in Teams, the Teams mobile app, both on the iOS and Android. Where it comes to certification, these products, like the verbiage that Microsoft uses for these products as it pertains to Teams walkie-talkie, is that these are validated products by Microsoft for use with that platform. I think when it comes to things like Teams certification, that's more of a designation that fits more of the knowledge and task worker spaces, again, that Evolve and Engage, segment of our lineup.
Great question, George. And yeah, the thing I would say about that is Microsoft is obviously one of our key strategic alliance partners, and we've worked with them over the years, starting back, as I mentioned, the legacy brand Blue Parrot, to build SKUs that work with those products. We obviously got a lot of great feedback from their technology adoption program. But I think the core point here is that in the frontline space, and what we see as the evolving frontline space, dongle won't be required. It'll be a direct connection to either the Bluetooth phone, mobile device, or tablet being used. And maybe not to talk too much about product, but to talk about one of the innovations we've made. If I'm a shift worker working at a retail store, one of the key things for me is I need to come into the store on time, clock in, and get ready for my shift. Jim, maybe just a bit on NFC and how that works with our products to help make sure that retail operations, for example, or supply chain operations are really efficient. Talk about NFC and just how our connections work with devices.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's what I love about this particular picture because you can start to see, the core components that a frontline worker, how do we empower a frontline worker? When you talk about NFC, that's a particular way that you can do a tap to pair Bluetooth connection to a mobile device. Now that's in the Android world, the NFC tap to pair is available for our headsets to be able to do that pairing, and it's a far quicker, easier process to pair your headset to an Android device that way than, trying to put the headset into pairing mode and then going through a menu to go and select for, oh, it found my headset and I select for that. When it comes to shift work, obviously people want to get on the floor. They don't want to be messing around with the startup and the boot up on the technology. So NFC tap to pair really supports that workflow for shift work to get going when they're grabbing, the random mobile device of the day and they're taking their headset to get connected. I do want to finish on this slide though, because we're going to get more granular on the audio applications, but this is really kind of a very much a template across all of a lot of Jabra solutions, that there's a host device that we have to connect to with our products, our headsets. So in this case, it's the Bluetooth, it's the mobile device. And then there's some kind of audio application that is on that device that we're going to add ultimate value to and improve the user experience and bring, novel experiences for our users. So, like as for all of our customer base, there may be one or more of these types of applications that could be running or be thought of in terms of, yes, we're going to go forward and adopt that. Things like push to talk applications, things like voice directed picking applications in a warehouse. UC, there's a variety of UC options. Obviously, that's a way to talk to people over a mobile phone. Don't forget, these could be cellular enabled, and maybe a phone call is happening, just plain old cellular call. Our headsets are perfect for that. And then, in the emerging world of the AI voice assistant. So we're going to get more granular in that, but just keep this all in scope as to what we add value to from a mobile forward perspective.
Thanks for that question, George. And thanks for the answer, Jim. I think it's a perfect segue into our next slide. I think that just before we go to that, my reflection is simply that it's not that customers are picking a software application. They're often picking multiple software applications depending upon the use case. And so in an environment, whereas you may be in a retail environment, for example, the person that is worried about stock and making sure the shelves are full may have a different software applications to communicate than those retail associates dealing with, cashier or those managers who are walking around with mobile devices. So yes, no dongles needed, automatic connection to Bluetooth with integration to multiple software applications for the particular user. And with all that, I'll go to the next slide because I think it kind of will help you speak to, Jim, what's actually changing in Frontline. I have this perspective that a lot of what the technology evolution that's happened across all industries was really impacted by the pandemic. And we saw it very closely overall at Jabra because obviously the need to deploy millions of workers at home required them to have the technology devices to support their ability to stay connected and interacted and interactive. And so if you think about that from a frontline, and let's just use retail example, a frontline retail perspective, what that's really done is made retailers look at their technological infrastructure. And I'm talking everything from their edge networks to the devices being deployed to what needed to be upgraded on their payment systems. And all of those things were done with the goal and are being done, by the way, to enhance and improve the customer experience to make those retailers more effective, to ensure that they can retain the employees that are tasked with serving us, and to make sure as they implement other technologies such as RFID and AI-enabled cameras to monitor who's going to what aisle the most, it kind of helps them to think about what capabilities do they need on their network. And that's causing upgrades. It's causing an upgrade cycle. I think Jim mentioned walkie-talkies earlier. So, and as technology is being expanded in those stores, they look for what is capable, like what are the capabilities of leveraging the technology upgrades they're doing to enhance the employee experience and enhance the customer experience. So with that, Jim, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, certainly all of us going through the pandemic, and getting food and, all sorts of things delivered fast. And, we all got kind of used to that, and that from a brick and mortar, store perspective, where maybe we weren't going to the stores, like the whole like competition landscape changed between brick and mortar retail and online retail. And so it really has like forced every brand who has a brick and mortar footprint how to increase velocity of getting goods to you in the way that you want to procure them. So whether that's like, it's not necessarily going on Amazon to go and have them deliver something to you. It could be everyone's got an online presence now, and everyone's got an online delivery, format to get stuff to you. So again, it's all about that like velocity, how fast to time to deliver. And again, like when we looked at the earlier slide, there's got to be, there's human processes behind that in order to, and where velocity can be picked up is going to be where like technology is going to be applied. And so, these three themes here, I think, in terms of what's emerging, are all about improving that velocity of getting goods through the supply chain thread. If I have to navigate spaces, and maybe the warehouse is being understaffed today, because of sickness or whatever, I've got to be able to coordinate all my activities in a physical space with fewer people. I can't be shouting down aisles, or, I've got to do that over, some kind of communication. And maybe the old way was over a walkie-talkie, but they also gave me this mobile device because I've got to scan barcodes and do inventory, and data capture. Like, why have two devices to do that? Why can't I just put everything on one device and have this scanner be also my walkie-talkie? That's an experience that's happening and expanding. When we talk about walkie-talkies go digital, the whole like voice activation and how voice activated workflows, that's all about velocity. Like rather than pen and paper and doing checklists and, checking off what I picked today, if I can have that voice driven dialogue that speeds up that process, warehouses are deploying that. And then, from a perspective of AI, like AI seems to be emerging everywhere. But in the frontline space, there's a number of ways that AI is, especially a voice-driven perspective, is being deployed. That's all about, like, again, improving the velocity, getting information to the right person at the right time, answering questions quickly, and where AI helps a retail associate do that, helps a manufacturing worker do that. These are themes that are very important to us because we develop to them when we're crafting our solutions.
I think that's a great answer. Technically speaking, being non-technical, I will say to the audience, I miss my Nextel. I still, after all the years of unified communication and collaboration tools and applications and software that I use, I still feel like I am as someone penetrating my brain when I'm thinking about something else. But with that, I will continue to evolve as the market does. I think that may feed into software applications and who we work with. We talked about Microsoft Teams. So, Jim, maybe just talk about some of the other software partners that we work with in order to evolve and how we built the Perform line.
Yeah, and this is where we get more granular, because when we're talking about those two experiences in the last slide, or at least the first two experiences, the walkie-talkies go digital and the voice-directed workflows. These are specific. Some, it's not an exhaustive list, but some of the leaders in terms of applications where frontline work is, frontline work collaboration, frontline worker communication is taking place. So, there's the push-to-talk experiences, say Microsoft Teams walkie-talkie that we've talked about, as well as like Zello. We have a very interesting use case that where our Perform 45, this particular model, is being used with Zello push-to-talk in Sam's Clubs all across America. So, like multiple thousands of headcount up on headsets, Sam's Club employees, interacting with each other over a common platform to be able to, coordinate their activities and be able to deliver customer service. Zebra is a very important strategic partner of ours. Their work cloud communication suite is they're offering, and in terms of like, if you're familiar with Zebra, they're very much a leader in the frontline world from the hardware perspective, developing mobile computers that your greeter at the front of a retail store is using to anybody in the aisles or at the kiosks. And and so they have both hardware that they're deploying out to retailers or distribution centers, and then they also offer their own software under the Zebra Work Cloud trademark. So push to talk under what's called Zebra Work Cloud Sync is the latest platform, which offers chat, walkie-talkie, voice calling, video, and in the future AI collaboration. So we're partnered with the leaders in that walkie-talkie goes digital world with these push-to-talk applications that frontline workers are using. And again, it's removing the walkie-talkie two-way radio, old experience out of the picture and putting everything over, an Android or an iOS-based mobile device. We have some other names there, certain may be familiar to our listener base, but things like Jennifer, Lydia Voice, AccuSpeech, Avanti, these are also voice-directed picking applications being used in distribution center. And in essence, it's like what they're running is a dialogue between the order builder in the warehouse who's got some kind of specific order that they've got to pick product for, and rather than do that over pen and paper checklist or some other process, instead it's a voice-driven dialogue, and it's a series of back and forth commands spoken, commands delivered, commands heard, that is guiding that order builder in a warehouse where to go, what to pick, quantity to pick, confirm, and then move on and get the next instruction where to go. So it's, think about how that would speed up the process than needing to, do this manually with, more slower or clunkier process. So, this just gives color and shape to the specific applications being deployed out both in retail and in supply chain and distribution center that's supporting push-to-talk, voice collaboration, and supporting voice-directed workflows from, say, a voice picking perspective in the warehouse.
Thanks for that overview, Jim. I think the two key takeaways I would say is that with our experience working with IT leaders and managers, they love the fact that we are both agnostic and work across multiple platforms. And they also love our relationships with all of our partners who are helping us develop bespoke solutions depending upon the use case they're deploying. And so our agility and flexibility in the frontline space as we develop this incubation business is going to be very consistent with how Jabra, from an audio and video perspective, works within an ecosystem that support it so that we make sure we're dealing with best-in-class technologies. The key thing I would mention, again, not being the most technical guy, though, is a core product differentiation is the push-to-talk button, because it essentially enables the same capabilities that we can do by chatting an instant message on this call, and allows their broader workforce to have that same technology and react quickly. And that's very important for multiple applications, including situations such as safety and loss prevention, situations in case you need to check with a different group to understand how to very quickly resolve an issue. And it's also a great way to build channels and therefore have teams collaborate so that they're getting real-time information with the push of a button, and then the ability to come right back to what they're doing and the customer they're dealing with. And with that, I think, Jim, you touched on AI, but I was early that.
Before you guys pivot, there's a couple of questions back in there. George has a couple more things kind of getting into the weeds of how the Bluetooth works and pairing, et cetera. Maybe we'll address those before we jump into the AI piece of that. Sure. The first question was, how many devices pair simultaneously on Perform headsets? Is it the same as other headsets like the Evolve 2? That's question number one.
Yeah. Yes and no. So I know that's kind of a funny way to start the answer, but So, like typical Bluetooth devices will support something like, I think what you're speaking to, multi-point pairing, the ability to pair to say two devices simultaneously. And, I take a call over a laptop or I take a call over my mobile phone, my headset's going to handle both. So with one of our products, yes, that's built in, but it's can be turned off. And then with our another product, default status is no, it won't provide multi-point pairing. And there's a specific reason for that. The whole aspect of shared device in the Frontline world does create Bluetooth pairing headaches for warehouse managers, retail store managers, who are not IT people, and they really just need their workforce to sell stuff and work with customers. And so, like, say I use today's device and I pair my headset to it, and then, I go home, and then tomorrow I grab a different mobile device and I pair my headset to it. Well, maybe my headset stored yesterday's pairing. So I go to push a button and it's not activating, this phone. It's maybe hitting the one that I was using yesterday. So you can get into scenarios where multi-point pairing can actually create a lot of headaches for you from a device management perspective as a customer. So we have, and it's great you asked this, because these products, we offer specific ways to configure these headsets so that they're optimized for a shared device environment by turning off these kind of common Bluetooth features, so that this, my Perform 45 is not acting like a general Bluetooth mono earbud, but it's acting as a specific, professionally designed, intended product for frontline work, and that it's not going to create, problems where, say, like a generic Bluetooth off the market could. So, yeah, we can configure Bluetooth experiences. We do, we encourage things like NFC tap to pair on Android. But yeah, by getting rid of that multi-point pairing option, keeps the device so that it's paired to the device I'm using right now and nothing else. And when I go home and I come back the next day and I pair to a fresh new device, it's to that device and that device only. So,
Real world.
Great question.
Before we go on to the next question, great question, George. But real world example, with my experience with multi-pairing devices, there's nothing worse than being a pacer like me. I work from home, and when I'm walking around in an important one-to-one conversation with my boss, all of a sudden, if I get too close to my garage, my car takes over the call and I can hear the speaker coming in, or someone else pulls in because it's fair. And it's happened to me many times. And in an environment, for example, you mentioned retail or in manufacturing, when you're running multiple cycles, IT managers want, mostly from a security perspective, but also from an efficiency perspective, to know that when you walk in, you can pair to the right device at the right time. And then, Josh, you said you had another question?
Yeah, there's one that's kind of along these lines, right? But it's since they're Bluetooth headsets, the question is how many headsets can be in one location without interference among them, right? So is there kind of a prescribed limit of a specific fixed area size and the amount of Bluetooth headsets that can be in that space safely, or not? Where are we at?
It falls under kind of general Bluetooth saturation, so it would be no different than what. So like when we do like that Bluetooth and wireless density heat mapping and such, under the Jabra, like say office space type use cases, the kind of the conditions for Bluetooth saturation or wireless density, still apply. But what's different is, think of the spaces involved with the frontline work as opposed to knowledge, like if we're talking an office space and cubicle areas and people, if there's a lot of people, showing up to work at one time and you have to kind of consider about all that density, that's a thing. But if you're talking about a retail environment, massive big box store that's maybe got 20 people up on headsets spread out amongst all the, that floor space, your density nodes are, much less, there's less option, or I should say less potential for saturation, especially when people, because of the mobility aspect of people's work, densities coming in and densities moving away, almost simultaneously. People are coming together and breaking apart. Maybe they're on their forklift in the warehouse. They're using their headset for their voice picking. They pick something, they're zooming off to go to the next location in the warehouse. So that density issue really does not come up in these spaces because it's just not, people aren't static. They're mobile, they're moving, and the Bluetooth density is always, shifting around.
Technically speaking, I think that's a great answer. I think said separately, think about the Jabra brand, right? And so what we try to do always is to ensure that we're doing proof of concepts with IT leaders. We, shout out to our professional services group and our solutions engineers, because what they're going to do in those environments and deployment is construct feedback from those IT decision makers, understand the environments they're working in, understand any risks. I think what Jim's talking about is typically when you're talking about the frontline worker space, the floor plan is much larger, and so therefore we've seen, if I think about the use case of our large deployments, it's never really come up because those users are spread across a major space versus office workers who are typically in a more contained footprint. Josh, was that it for the questions?
Yeah, I think that gets us all caught up there. Yep, nothing new beyond that.
Well, thank you both for those questions. They, again, I think they also kind of indicate the kind of things that we've been asked over time, particularly in proof of concepts when IT decision makers are thinking about mass deployments. And sometimes mass is 500 if you're a small retailer. Sometimes mass is 30 to 40,000 if you are a large retailer or a manufacturer who has multiple shifts. So I guess with that, Jim, you already touched on AI. I think I had mentioned that it was a bit of an early adopter, but I never really thought about it from a mobile device perspective until this year. We went and attend every year the National Retail Federation trade show. It's where retailers come to see best in class technology and figure out how they want to evolve, delivering a better customer experience and improving just but the employee experience would also evolve their technology. It was a great show, and this year, for the first time when we attended, um, everything was about AI across all sectors, which was both impressive and caused me to pause and think about, well, how does that fit into, how does Jabra fit into that? And fortunately, in the contact centers, we've had years of experience with our AI series of headsets. And then 2 months later, in March, we went to ProMat, and ProMat is the biggest supply chain show in North America. And we were there obviously to talk to the voice directed picking providers to get a sense of where the market was going. Fortunately, we had launched the Perform 75, and I was amazed at how many people that were in our EAP program when we went into their booths gave us like amazing feedback about how it checked all the boxes. And I'll make a reference back to how many people again told us, man, this thing's great. It even answers, it even understand twos. And so that was a great, it was a great kind of validation that even with a product that had only been launched for about 30 days, people were excited about the steps we're making in terms of evolution. But as importantly, in the supply chain space, I was amazed at how many were looking at adopting AI to improve their workflows and again drive some of the return on investment that is so important in such a competitive environment. And so, Jim, with that, man, talk to me about AI. What's going on there?
Yeah, no, and especially it's very cool to see, when we saw that at NRF and ProMat, that the talk of like AI companions being able to support frontline worker, access like company policies, company information, if there's like specific instruction sets for say like the machine tools that they're using, how do I access that quickly? I don't want to spend time doing search and scroll to try to find an answer. Can I have through a voice dialogue get the answer to me? Or like think about like a newly hired retail associate customer, they just thrown on the floor. There really is like little training involved, and customer comes up to them and asks them about a warranty policy on a product, and to be able to invoke an AI assistant and ask that question and get the answer. A lot of this stuff is being looked at, and again, it's all about that velocity. How do I reduce and erase all the friction points in the experience that customers and associates have to ensure that that experience is top notch and they walk out happy with something that they bought. It's really important, obviously, with the machine ear that garbage in can be garbage out, and if the machine ear is not hearing you accurately 100% of the time, it may not give you what you want. If it's like having a struggle to hear you, and like when these companions in AI, like when they're needing audio input through microphones or headsets or speakerphones or that kind of thing, this is an area of this can be a real problem right at this point. And so what we've seen is that voice intelligibility is critical to success for AI to do what it's intended to do. And in the voice directed world, they talk about the numeral 2, saying the number 2, something about the way that the number sounds or those letters sound is difficult for voice directed picking applications to pick up. And so sometimes it's like prompting the speaker to repeat themselves. And if you multiply having to repeat an instruction to a voice picking software, if it happens maybe 3 times a day, 3, 5, 7 times a day for a pick, that is slowing down, again, like I talked about the velocity, it's slowing down the rate of picks, and multiply that out over shifts, over distribution centers, and it adds up. It's lost time and it's lost money. So if you can eliminate the need to repeat when you're speaking, that's super critical. And what we were finding under EAP and beyond is that when our customers were testing our Perform 75 and comparing it to their existing headset in use in a voice-directed world, some of those problematic words, those heat words, those like saying the number 2, they weren't being required to repeat themselves. And so that was very impactful. That was a specific evaluation point that jumped out off the page and supported, ultimately that customer's decision to go with the Perform 75. So, voice intelligibility, everything we're doing with our microphones, our noise cancellation, the way we're handling the audio processing in the headset is all built around not being destructive to how you are heard. And it's only, it's built around supporting that intelligibility so you sound your best to both the human ear and the machine ear.
And thank goodness, because one of our largest wins of the year has been with one of the leading bottlers, consumer packaging company. And we've been able to not only work with them to impact their operations, improve their return on investment, but we also walk the floors. And those people working in from voice picking perspective really appreciate how we've innovated. And they also appreciate the all-day comfort. The next slide is something we would just present to end users. Typically, it's how do they make a decision on what to provide. I'm going to skip over it because I think as we approach the end of our time, right, I want Jim to dig into the 2 products that we find that we've introduced this year and give you a sense of just what some of the features are.
Yeah.
Hey,
so
Jim,
the perform. Oh, hey.
Before you jump in there, another question in the Q&A. Are Perform headsets compatible with Jabra Direct, or does it have its own inventory management application, specifically being Bluetooth devices? These tend to easily get lost or misplaced.
Yep. No, these are manageable using Jabra Direct and Jabra Express.
And it's hard to see here. There's also a place for asset tagging. Many retailers about how it could get lost or walk out of the store will use the asset tagging in their own systems to track that. And in addition, we often have requests from retailers to ensure that there's a feature that only allows the device to work with their actual mobile store-bought recommended devices. Said differently, want to make sure that you can't walk home and use it on your iPhone. And so there are applications and work that we're doing to make sure that that also protects from an asset protection perspective.
Yeah, no, and that's in terms of protecting, this product's use with our customers. This is the Jabra Perform 45. This is the headset that I'm wearing and using. But this is what we would position for your customer-facing roles, say your retail associate. It could be like a final mile delivery driver, somebody who's, maybe needing something that's small and discreet, not obtrusive, not distractive to maybe customer interactions. Sometimes bigger headsets and the longer mic boom might be something that would distract from a customer if you're engaging with them. So certainly our retail enterprise customers, they look at this as being quite a favorable form factor for their associates to use. A lot of power and functionality, put into such a small device. This is super lightweight. It's IP54 rated, so this can be, this is very resistant to dust and moisture. It can be used in, Minnesota in the winter, Florida in the summer, all places in between. Garden center, curbside, inside the four walls. So, anywhere that our customers need this headset to go, it can go. Even with the small microphone boom, it has 80% effective noise cancellation. So we do a specific process to rate our headsets in terms of how effective they are in canceling out background sound. Smaller mic boom again, but it can certainly clear out all the background sound and prevent that from being overheard. This has the NFC tap to pair capability to a mobile device, so certainly can handle that. From a cleanliness and sanitization perspective, this does come up, and typically, like, our customers are buying these. They're not sharing the headsets. They might be sharing the mobile device, but this is really kept personal to the associate. But day-to-day use obviously has its wear and tear on the product. This can be kept clean, because of the IP54. You can do the cloth wipe down, but you can also sanitize this with alcohol wipes, and that won't be destructive to the materials. One feature we've built in, it's specific and unique to this. It's helpful, versus other, like, obviously the more generic Bluetooth out there. This has what's called face-to-face mode. There's 3 layers to that. So with face-to-face mode, what could happen is, say I'm an associate, I'm having a face-to-face conversation with a customer, but I'm hearing background chatter happening over the push-to-talk channel. Maybe that's distracting to me, and it's preventing me from focusing on my conversation with my customer. I can just flip the microphone boom up momentarily. That's going to mute all audio. So all speaker audio and all microphone audio is muted, and I can just focus on my customer. It momentarily beeps just to let me know that I've put it in that mode, but all I got to do is bring the mic boom back down, and now I'm back into hearing all that audio. You can select for full mute, both speaker audio and microphone mute. You can also select just to have this be in, half mute mode, so just the microphone gets muted if you do that. But, a very important feature for our customer-facing, customer base. This is Bluetooth class 1, so it can go up to 300 feet wireless range, so long as the host device also supports class 1, so it's dependent on how far the host device can go wirelessly. And then this is the push-to-talk button. So this engages with our push-to-talk applications, and it's just a quick, easy press to engage with our customers.
With 5 minutes remaining, I'll just give a quick warning to our audience. I'm in the office today in our corporate headquarters in North America, but I work from home mostly, and I was jamming out with Spotify. Be very careful if you're wearing the device, because you forget that you have it on, especially when you get into the shower, and that happened to me. So lightweight for people to make sure the associates don't really have to think about it. True story. Moving on, Jim, and then we got to wrap up. We got 5 to go, and I'd love any other questions.
Yeah, if you can jump to the next one. Actually, yeah. Once we get all these little...
1 second, I'm trying, but my button isn't advancing. There it is.
Perform 75. So you'll see this in your kind of heavier duty roles in the retail, but also in your warehouse and distribution center headset. This is great for the voice directed picking. This is built modularly, so it's different than the other headset in that these components can be disengaged and it
I don't
helps to
believe.
support.
First of all, I don't believe you. I call it the transformer. Show me what you mean by disengaged.
And it re-engages. There's some
Oh,
magnetic coupling here,
oh,
so yeah,
transformer.
it's magic. So yeah, like shared components. Typically warehouses, they could be running in like a 3-shift operation. So there would be a container with these ready to go. Then there would be the removable battery, and then the individual wearing style. So everything with the Perform 75 comes packaged as is, with you get all of this and a USB charge cord. So you can charge this individually. But I'll show you in a second. But we have battery blocks that would support charging 10 of the removable batteries. And then we have, like, where this comes packaged with an over-the-head headband. We have sold separately the behind the neck band. So this can be worn behind the neck, like as such, or it can be, again, worn over the head. NFC tap to pair capable, push to talk button is here. A ton of talk time, up to 50 hours, push to talk time, 20 hours, standard talk time. And if your battery should die after speaking exhaustively, maybe filibustering, I could just swap out the battery and go. It's got the face-to-face mode, so I can, mute things as I flip the microphone boom up, and then also sanitizable. Very intelligible, like you're looking at the noise cancellation rating, 99% effective on noise canceling. So this is bulletproof in terms of preventing background sound from interrupting your work. This is freezer rated. So for our, grocery style customers, this can be used in frozen food sections, frozen meat, grocery. This can go down to negative 22 Fahrenheit and still operate up to 10 hours under that battery condition. IP65, dust and moisture resistant. This is a fantastic headset. Orlando, if you go to the next one, it's the ecosystem. So, in terms of like supporting shift work, we've got the battery block with the batteries. You see the other components. We sell a boom arm organizer. So, these particular pieces can be stored elegantly in an organized fashion for like a grab and go perspective for getting shift work up and running. We sell the headset wearing styles separately, so everyone gets their own wearing style, and that's personal to them, while everything else is being shared. So we're very much tuned in to what that end customer needs to support all day use.
Awesome. And as we wrap up here, Jim's covered the two products to the both to the left of the screen. The product that's grayed out is something that's upcoming. So I want to remind you of two things as a call to action. The first is that I talked about early adopter programs. We believe in listening to our customer feedback. If you want to participate, reach out and contact us. Secondly, this product will be coming out, we expect, in Q4 of the year. We'd love, if you're interested, to do customer roadshows, get your sense of the feedback on this product, but also talk to you about our future roadmap under NDA. And with that, I will turn it back over to you. Thank you for attending and listening. And Josh, where do we go from here?
Very cool. Thank you very much, both of you. Good engagement, good questions. George, always bringing the good questions in there. We're very much appreciated. If there are any other questions at this time, please bubble them up. We've been watching the chat, watching the Q&A. We'll also unmute you. But it looks like we have caught ourselves up there, and we're in a good place. As always, there's a QR code on screen. So if you want to leave some feedback, and we truly appreciate it all the way around on the presentation, on the topic, on what you'd like to hear in the future, on why we didn't serve popcorn, any of those things, go ahead and drop that stuff in there. We love getting the feedback from you. And yeah, I don't see any other questions popping up. We're right at time there. We kind of ended on a very exciting technical note about the future of this portfolio. So keep an eye. Maybe we have you guys back on several months down the road to talk about what's new, as there obviously will be new. Thank you both.
We appreciate you, Josh. We appreciate the audience. Don't forget to reach out for your samples, or if you're interested in our early adopter program. Thanks so much. Go Jabra.
Thanks so much, Josh. Thanks, Orlando, buddy.
Guys. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next month.